Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Politics in the Pub. I'm Chandran, and I'll be chairing today's session at Politics in the Pub. Now, first and foremost, let me acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. Pay my respects to their elders past and present. Today's topic is titled, The Turnbull Government's Impending Major Attack on Workers' Wages and Conditions. Why all fair-minded Australians should back the ACTU campaign of opposition. To speak on this topic, we have two wonderful speakers with us. They are Tim Ayres, who is on your far left, and Matt Gatfield, who is on your near left. They're both on your left, that's the main thing. Mel Gatfield was elected Assistant Secretary of the NSW branch of United Voice, formerly the Liquor, Hospitality and Miscellaneous Union, in March of 2008. United Voice is a union of workers organizing to win better jobs, stronger communities, a fairer society, and a sustainable future. Mel is responsible for the campaigning and organizing and community engagement work in the branch. Prior to working at United Voice, Mel worked for 16 years at the Finance Sector Union, holding the positions of organizer, industrial officer, and branch assistant secretary. Mel has a Bachelor of Arts from UNSW, majoring in industrial relations and political science. Now, the second speaker, as I told you earlier, is Tim Ayres. Now, Tim Ayres is the NSW Secretary of the Australian Manufacturing Workers Union, or AMWU. He has been working in the union movement for over 20 years. Tim works every day to stand up for workers in NSW, ensuring they get a fair deal at work, in the community, and from the government. Under Tim's leadership, the NSW branch has run many high-profile and successful campaigns, including the Build Them Here campaign in the Hunter, which saw over 15,000 residents petition the government to support Hunter industry. Tim has served as Director of Industry Superannuation Funds, is a director of the NSW Industry Capability Network, and a director of McHale Institute, a progressive think tank. So please welcome both Tim and Mel the usual way. Now, may I now invite Mel to the microphone, please.
Thanks. It's a pretty massive subject, and one that I feel like you probably actually don't need much convincing on, I hope. We had a quick chat in the cab about the way we were going to talk tonight, and thought that we would try and come at this question from a couple of different angles. So I really wanted to talk to you tonight about my union, United Voice, and talk about the experience of our members and why we need people like your support to back unions like United Voice in, and to back the ACTU campaign, and to obviously put the Liberals last at the next election. For those of you who don't know, United Voice is not a choir or a church. It is a union of workers. We are the old Liquor, Hospitality, Miscellaneous Workers Union. And we went through a process and talked to our members about how we should describe ourselves, and they came up with United Voice. They wanted to have a voice for cleaners, a voice for security guards, a voice for home care workers, a voice for people that work in the manufacturing industry. So if you think about our members at United Voice, they're really the backbone of life in our community. From when you wake up until well after you go to sleep, you rely on our members to get you through your day. We bake your bread, so we cover bread manufacturing, tip top. We educate your children, early childhood educators, fighting for equal pay in the early childhood sector. We care for your family. Our members are home care workers that provide care in people's homes for the elderly and for the disabled. And we keep your workplace clean and safe. And when your day is done, we feed you, we entertain you, we serve you in places like this. So United Voice is a really diverse union, but our members are really proud of the work they do and they want to be valued for it, like all of us. Members often live week to week. They want a good life, they want secure jobs, they want enough pay to support their families, they want to buy a home and they want to retire one day. But for our members, a lot of our members, that's not the reality. And the industries our members work in are very often what we call contracting industries. So they're not employed by the place that they work. They're subcontracted out, and those jobs become really precarious. They're often casualised, they're often at the whim of the contractor. If the customer doesn't like it, the contract gets stuck, our members can lose their job. If people are involved in their union, sometimes they can be targeted. So they're the kind of things that our members want to fight for. We are fighting for a change in the way that the industrial relations system works in Australia, and it's pretty basic, and I'm not going to go through lots of detail, but I wanted to just give you the overview of what United Voice thinks needs to be better, and then focus in on a couple of key areas. So we need workers to be able to organise, to be able to get together collectively and bargain and use that United Voice, but it's really bloody hard if you're the only cleaner working of a night time and you don't see anyone else. So how do we get people together? We think we need a lot of reform about workers joining unions. So things like access to inductions and information, getting some training from unions about what people's rights are. People don't know what their rights are. Young people today don't know what a union is. We have lost that culture where mum and dad told you to sign up to the union. That's not happening, and we need to find another way to do that. We need to reform the way that we bargain. We need to really think about what is a strong safety net, and I want to talk to you a bit more about that because I think it's really important. We need protections for insecure work. We need to make sure that if I contract out my business and I pass on that burden, that when a worker gets mistreated or when they get sacked or when they get laid off, they can fight back and get that money back up the supply chain. It's really hard for people to do that at the moment, and we want to work for that. But what I wanted to talk about firstly was minimum wage, or what we want to call a living wage. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but Australia's lowest paid workers have really fallen behind. We were known in Australia of having this really great minimum wage system with a really strong award system, and over the last few years that's really failed us. Since the 90s, the wage has been really falling despite whether we've been in periods of recession or periods of growth. The minimum wage has not kept pace. And the way that our system determines what the minimum wage increase is on a year-by-year basis. It doesn't take account of what's happening and what the structural changes are. And nearly 1 in 5 Australian workers are on the minimum wage. It's more likely women, it's more likely young people, they're more likely to be United Voice members. Most of our members are award reliant or very close to the awards. It's really important for us. The history of the wage goes back to our good friend Justice Higgins, for those IR students, that said that, yeah, companies should be able to make a profit, but employees should be able to have a reasonable level of existence. And we've been known as the country of the fair go, known for our minimum wage. But while there's been growth, economic growth of 3% that's outpaced most countries, our minimum wage has really fallen behind. And we are now sitting at, the minimum wage is 43.8% of your average wage. And the OECD says that a minimum wage is anything, it defines low paid workers as anyone earning less than 2/3. So it's sitting at 43.8%. We are definitely sitting at less than 2/3 of the median wage. We don't think this is consistent. We don't think that people can live on this, and if you're in precarious employment and not getting enough hours, you definitely can't, right? We think that inequality in our society is really a problem, and it's a problem that needs to be addressed by this government. We can talk about tax, we can talk about who pays what, but we think that minimum wages need to have a real shake-up. Bargaining hasn't worked for our members. They don't have the capacity to come together and collectively bargain like we might have in years gone past, and we need to effect some change here. We're arguing that there should be a target based on a minimum wage, like a percentage of the median wage, and we've started to put together our campaign for that and to argue that in the Fair Work Commission. Bit dry, but kind of important for people to survive. But when I thought about what is the main thing that our members are working on in this campaign, in this election campaign, I thought I'd talk about our Save Our Weekend campaign, the campaign to protect penalty rates. Our members think that weekends still mean something in this country. It might mean that you go out to a night like this, you might go out to the footy, you might take your kids somewhere. But for people who serve us in restaurants, that work when the rest of us are relaxing, it's just another weekday, right? It's just another work day for those people. And a lot of those are our members. Weekend rates are compensation for coming to work when the rest of us are relaxing and enjoying times with our friends and family. And when we have asked and done polling, most Australians support that idea. People think that penalty rates are a good thing. So we think that whether you're a hotel worker, a cleaner, or a paramedic, or a nurse, there shouldn't be different rates of pay. If you work on the weekends, if you work unsociable hours, you should be fairly compensated. What we are hearing from our members is that weekend rates and penalty rates really are part of their income. Any cut to that is a massive cut to their rate of pay. And again, these people are predominantly on minimum rates of pay. It would hurt a number of families. And I think that people forget, there's this kind of hype that you hear from Turnbull and from the business community that the world has changed and that we just have to get with it. I think there was a lovely article from a former official of ours today in The Australian, Martin Ferguson, saying that the union should just get on board and get with the 21st century. But if you look at the facts, 70% of people still work Monday to Friday. An estimated 4.6 million workers are entitled to receive weekend, evening or holiday rates. And when you hear stories about this is going to impede employment, it's going to kill the restaurant and hospitality business, spending over the last 5 years in restaurants and cafes has climbed 36%. They're doing all right. They know when they open a cafe or open a restaurant, the penalty rates are what apply. Like any business, you have to make a business decision about what rent you're going to pay, what cost your food is going to cost you, and how much you're going to have to pay your staff. And it's not a new thing. Penalty rates have been around for over 100 years. A lot of restaurants do fail, but it's not because of penalty rates. There's a whole lot of information from ASIC that says 20% of them because of poor strategic management, not good cash flow, lots of financial problems. So where are we at now? Penalty rates is becoming a bit of a hot issue. The Productivity Commission recommended that retail rates and hospitality workers' rates should be reduced. We're not going to touch the nurses, don't worry. We're just coming after the low-paid workers that service on the weekend. The Nurses and Midwives Union in New South Wales have been 100% behind the Save Our Weekends campaign. They know that if cleaners and if hospitality workers' penalty rates get affected, then they're going to be next. So the union movement is completely solid on this, but we need your help. It's now currently being considered by the Fair Work Commission. Our award, the Hospitality Award and the Retail Award, have been going through the process of the Fair Work Commission, and we've been having to put forward submissions. We've had lawyers at hundreds of thousands of dollars being spent by everyone to put our arguments forward. And the hospitality sector has not been able to put any evidence that reducing penalty rates would create more jobs. None. The Fair Work Commission did something quite different the Productivity Commission did something quite different, and they asked for community input, and they got 5,839 submissions from the public, and they closed their public forum down and said, oh, we can't deal with all these submissions, because people don't want to see penalty rates go. What did Big Business do? They launched their own Save Our Weekend campaign and said that there needed to be more choice for diners. They've keep saying that we're going to kill their business, but again, in the Fair Work Commission couldn't put any evidence on to say that if penalty rates were cut, they would create more jobs. If penalty rates stay, that they would lose their business. No evidence has been put in that system. And what's Turnbull saying? The Liberal Party hasn't made out any changes, but they're trying to defer it to the Commission. And there's this talk of inevitability. It's a 7-day economy. We have to work on these days. No, we don't. People that do it deserve to get better pay. So our members around the country have got together. They've gone door knocking in marginal seats. They've run market stalls. They've gone and spoken to businesses and said, do you support penalty rates? They've made sure that the workers in those businesses get penalty rates, and they get a little sticker saying we support penalty rates. And then we've had pub crawls to support those employers that provide penalty rates. We've done runs through cafes where people provide penalty rates and do the right thing. We want to support businesses that do the right thing by their workers. We went to the NRL Grand Final last year and asked people the question, how do you feel about the Grand Final being put on a Tuesday morning? You'll be shocked. Wasn't very popular. We are working our butts off to do those things now, and we need your help. We want people to understand that penalty rates do make a difference to people's lives. They are part of their minimum wage. They are compensation for working unsociable hours. And we want to have a society where we can go out on the weekend, but the people that work on the weekend get paid a decent amount for missing out on time with their family. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to ask you to sign my petition. If you sign my petition, which is to Malcolm, but we'll also get you on our Save Our Weekend website. We are doing fun things in pubs, clubs, restaurants and footy matches, and we're going to be hitting the streets through this election campaign. So I'd ask you to help United Voice Save Our Weekend. Thanks.